What's going on, guys, and welcome to my Friday Night SmackDown audio review for May 20th, 2022. I am Graham G.S. Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well and having a great weekend so far. Of course, as I record this right now, it is Saturday, May 21st, and therefore, got to give a quick birthday shout out to the best tag team partner anyone could ever ask for, the love of my life, Alexis. Happy birthday. I love you. But we did have, speaking of tag teams, a tag team title unification match in the main event of SmackDown on Friday, which we will get to. It was a much more newsworthy edition of SmackDown than usual. Not a much better show, quality-wise than usual. The middle of the show is definitely the same as it always has been. But we did get new unified tag team champions in the main event. No non-finish, no disqualification, no countouts, and no bullshit. We did get a decisive pair of winners in the main event, which we will get to momentarily. Before we get to that, though, on the same subject of tag teams, got to address this out of the gate. I'm just kind of reading off my written review here from SmackDown last night on WrestleRant.com, cheap plug, trying to do a better job of getting those reviews up soon after the show ends and not a week later. Just been very busy lately, but I think I'm all caught up on the reviews, which is great. But anyway, I do want to note these two things first that were the other than the tag team title unification in the main event, the most worth noting from SmackDown on Friday, before I forget. Obviously, the biggest update coming out of SmackDown was the suspension of Sasha Banks and Naomi, the now former WWE Women's Tag Team Champions. Now, they've been the talk of the town amongst wrestling fans all week long. The incident went down on Monday during Raw. They walked out of the show. We're still not sure yet. There's been conflicting reports whether it was during Raw they walked out or before the show. They had to change the main event. Were they aware of that already? I don't really sympathize with WWE in that respect, which is why I thought their following statement here on SmackDown was completely and utterly fucking stupid. Obviously, they put out a statement on .com and on Twitter on Monday right after Raw or right before Raw ended, which I don't remember which because I wasn't watching Raw live, so I caught that after it all unfolded well after the fact on Monday night. But there's been word all week, how will they address the situation? Will Sasha and Naomi be back? There's been a lot of analysis and discussion and no real updates aside from the fact that we found out on, I think it might have been after SmackDown last night or might have been before, I don't remember, that Sasha and Naomi's merchandise on WWE.com, WWEshop.com has since been pulled. And this has happened before with Punk and other people like that, but not quite to this extent and not as quickly. Someone asked today, when was the last time WWE did something along these lines? They do this sort of stuff, it's not all that uncommon. The thing in this situation is, like when Bryan, for example, right before he went to AEW and it was pretty clear that's where he was headed, there was no more Bryan merch on WWE.com. Even before he went to AEW, they made it pretty clear that, he wasn't coming back when that happened. When Brock had, I think his contract expired a few years ago in the summer of 2020, and it was also clear that he was currently, at that point, was not under contract, they pulled all of his merch. This is a little bit different. Sasha and Naomi, as of this recording, are still under contract at WWE. They have not been fired. Their contracts haven't expired yet, which reportedly is very soon, making the situation all that more interesting. In Origin, I had a lot of thoughts on this on WrestleRant Radio on Thursday. I talked about it at length on hashtag on Wednesday, so check out my other thoughts there. So I won't go into too much depth here. But what I will say is this. The way they addressed the situation on SmackDown, and I'm not even saying that they should have completely ignored the whole thing, but if they were going to vacate the women's tag team titles, which I don't really give a fuck about, the belts mean nothing. They talked about how they're going to have a future tag team tournament to determine new champions. Who could honestly give a fuck? The titles meant more with Sasha and Naomi because they were booked well. They were almost always on TV. They were over. They were winning. And then they walked out for whatever reason. I mean, it seems like there was a reason, a dispute over creative going forward, the creative direction of those titles, a lack of division, whatever, and they left. Them being gone, it's not like all of a sudden they're going to take those titles seriously. If anything, I would just get rid of them. I could just understand why WWE wouldn't do that. I've said this before, but I think if WWE were to go ahead and get rid of the titles altogether, which they should use this as an opportunity to do that, then it would be seen as a step backward for that division. To give them something, to give them more opportunities, and then I feel like by doing that, they would be therefore admitting defeat. It would be different than like dismantling the 24/7 championship, which, by the way, is still around. So if that's still around, there's no chance that women's tag team titles go anywhere, I wouldn't think. But it's like, it's this revolutionary thing to have the women's tag team titles. Then to move backward and to take away those women's tag team titles is something I don't think they're ready for yet. It's still only 3 years in. I mean, until the champions completely disappear from television and they have no women's division left, which I'm not even sure it would come to that point, thankfully, And that'll never happen. I think they'll always have women's tag team paperweights, or rather, women's tag team titles in this company. Not that they can't be important, this company will just simply never prioritize them. If they barely give a fuck about the women, or rather the men's tag team titles, what makes you think that with much less women than they have men, that they're going to all of a sudden start caring about women's tag team titles? The NXT women's tag team titles suffer from the exact same issue. They mean absolutely nothing. That's just the, reality of the situation. But anyway, back to my original point. The way they addressed the situation on the show was completely fucking dumb. So they had Michael Cole at ringside, Pat McAfee not saying anything, sitting off to the side. And it's not Michael Cole's fault. It's all what they have him saying. But the two one-liners here that really got me was when they said that they openly acknowledged that Sasha and Naomi walked out of Raw. They put the titles down. I don't know if they mentioned John Laurinaitis by name, but they said they left the tag team titles behind and left the show, which, per the report of what WWE had said and what we've heard elsewhere, that sounds accurate, but we just don't know exactly what led up to that point. Michael Cole didn't say here that they were called divas or they had attitude issues and all this other stuff, which may or not be true, but they left that part out of the statement here. They kind of give you one side of the story without giving you the other half of it. They didn't mention, they didn't like the creative plans. Why would they say that on television anyway? But anyway, so they had said that in missing, and they showed the graphic of the women's six-pack challenge or whatever, which, mind you, wasn't even advertised until the fucking show went on the air. The show had just begun, and they aired a graphic for it, and less than an hour later, they changed the match. So it wasn't as if it was this big pay-per-view main event. It wasn't advertised a month out. It wasn't advertised a week out. It wasn't even advertised that fucking day. This company rips up scripts all the time. They promote matches constantly. They do not deliver on. This happens constantly. It happened with this fucking show. On this very... You cannot tell me. You cannot have any sympathy for this company in the respect that, they promoted a match. And listen, I think walking out on contracts and stuff, you signed a contract, got to honor the deal, whatever. I get that to an extent. I totally understand that. I'm on that side as well. I don't think they should have walked out. But this whole narrative that, they robbed these people of this classic main event that we didn't know we were getting until the show fucking began anyway, that didn't make any sense to have the women's tag team champions in there. I'm not saying they should have walked out over it, although it seems like there was more to that decision than what meets the eye here. I'm not on anyone's team. I'm not team WWE. I'm not even team Sasha and Naomi. This whole stand-up for Sasha and Naomi shit I think is dumb too. The whole situation is just bizarre. But as far as WWE goes, the whole narrative here they were trying to spew in this segment from Michael Cole and Pat, Pat wasn't really involved in it was more so Michael Cole, and again, it wasn't Michael Cole's fault, was that, they robbed us of the main event, they let down millions of viewers, and they're lucky they even get millions. They don't even get millions of viewers. They would be lucky if they did. They had, a fucking 1.5 million people watching on Monday. They didn't even have the plural version of that word, millions. It was 1.5 million people watching that show, barely. All right, maybe 1,700,000, whatever it was. And then they were like, they let down those millions of fans, and they were all disappointed. The only people that were disappointed, I would assume, were either people in the company. I can't imagine too many people watching live were disappointed, overly heartbroken, and cried themselves to sleep over the fact that Sasha and Naomi were not part of that main event. Maybe the company, they're forced to change creative plans. I get that. But the fact of the matter is what I'm really going off on here is what they said last night. They just make themselves look worse and worse. Had they not said anything, more people would probably be on the company's side here, which again, there's really no sides to take. It's just a situation we haven't heard every side of the story to yet. But it's one of those things where they're making themselves look worse from what they did on Raw, the way they addressed it there, the statement they put out, what they did on SmackDown, taking the titles off of them and suspending. I'm not even saying that's the issue. You walk out on the show when you were supposed to be on it, they probably should be suspended. I have no issue with that. Taking the titles off of them, not that it's a real reward to have them. The belts mean nothing, but again, why would you keep the championships on them? I get it. If they're not going to be back anytime soon, you take the titles off of them. I get it. The way they addressed it, though, it's not what happened, it's the way that it happened, how it happened, and the way that they had said it. It, to me, makes no fucking sense. It was so stupid for the same company that one of the women that is involved in this situation, Sasha Banks, where, it wasn't really Sasha's fault, but 8 or 9 months ago, going into SummerSlam, they were advertising Bianca and Sasha. I go back to this constantly, and there's been a million other examples specifically recently, but this one is more bothersome than any, in that they were actively advertising a Sasha Banks-Bianca Belair rematch from WrestleMania for SummerSlam last year for the SmackDown Women's Championship. The company was well aware that Sasha would not be there. They didn't say she may or may not make it. They weren't saying, oh, we don't know if she's going to show up on TV. No, she wasn't on TV for the last 2 weeks before the pay-per-view. She was not on the fucking show. They literally didn't even have an... It's not as if she was going to show up at the last 5 minutes before the match started. No, the pay-per-view began and they were still advertising the match. And this is one of their biggest pay-per-views of the year, and it was one of the most featured attractions on the show. Now, obviously, it worked out with Becky coming back. I'm not saying they didn't make up for it, but the fact they were even advertising it was ridiculous. Regardless of what Sasha had going on, it was the company's fault for promoting a match. They had a very good idea that they may not 100% knew it wasn't going to happen, but they had to know and there was a chance it wasn't going to happen. And at least said there was a chance, okay, we don't know if it's going to happen, and if it doesn't, here's a backup plan, and if Sasha doesn't make it, you'll have a mystery opponent. They could have at least said that. It wasn't even wishy-washy. They literally outright said they were having a match until Carmella came out instead of Sasha Banks. That is inexcusable. So this whole thing about, oh, they fucked over the company as far as that goes is stupid. The future creative plans thing, I can understand. The suspension thing, I understand. The tag title situation, I understand. I get it. The rest of the situation as far as WWE putting out a statement about it, does it really need to be public? Like, I know people like Sean Ross Sapp are going to report on in PW Insider and stuff like that, as they probably, I mean, this is the content I'm not saying they wish for this stuff to happen, but this is the content they build their websites on, because people are going to click on it, and that's how they get their reads and their business and their traffic and stuff like that. I get it. But as far as WWE, though, they didn't have to say shit. They didn't have to say anything. If Sasha and Naomi weren't saying anything, if they were just responding to what Sasha and Naomi had put out there, then I kind of get it. But it's not even the fact that WWE said anything, it's what they said, and the fact they come across so fucking petty, which, I mean, surprise, but, I mean, at least certain people in the company, probably just Vince specifically, it's not the entire company, not every person in that promotion is petty, but just the way they handle certain situations is very, 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 very questionable, and this being chief among them. So we'll see what happens next. Like I said, they said they're going to have a tag team tournament to determine new tag team champions for the women, which is a fucking joke. I heard tournament and I got a good cackle out of that because they have no division. There is no division. I would be shocked. I would be shocked if there were any more than 4 teams in that tournament. They don't even have 4 teams. They only have 2 teams. 3 teams if you count Carmella and Zelina, who seemingly broke up after WrestleMania. Carmella got married. She came back a few weeks later, immediately reunited with Zelina as if there was no issue. Got slapped around by Sonya, and there was never any follow-up to that at all. So I don't know what the fuck is going on there, but I would assume if they wanted to, they'll probably just keep those 2 together, which who could possibly give a shit? You'll have them in there, and Natalya and Shayna, who already unsuccessfully challenged for the tag team titles, earlier or late last week, a week ago, so they'll probably be in that thing. And Nikki Ash and Doudrop, who were seemingly going to get the next shot of the tag team titles after Sasha and Naomi had wrapped up their respective feuds with Ronda Rousey and Bianca Belair. So you have those 3 teams. They'll probably put together fucking Xia Li and Shotzi or something. Maybe Raquel and someone. I'm sure Raquel is going to be pushed on her own now that Sasha's gone, especially. They might put together another women's team on Raw, like Liv and fucking Asuka or something. Who knows? Who gives a shit? I don't even know. I would use this again, as other people have said, use this as an opportunity to just completely get rid of the titles. This will not make the titles mean more. They're not going to showcase the tag team titles. The matches will get 2 minutes. I mean, for example, do you really think this women's tag team title tournament is really going to take off or anything like that? This is the same company 6 to 8 months ago. They did the Queen of the Ring tournament, Queen's Crown tournament, whatever the fuck you want to call it. And we were all excited. They're finally doing one for the women. That's great. And they proceeded to have one of the worst tournaments I have seen in this company in years. The matches all together maybe got 8 minutes in total. Literally between like 6 or 7 matches in that tournament or whatever it was. Total in-ring time was like 7 or 8 minutes. That is fucking ridiculous. It was beyond dumb. Maybe it was like 10 minutes total, but the point still stands. I do not need to see another women's tag team title tournament. I guess it's better than just Triple H-ing the titles and giving them to Shayna and Natalya for no reason, but the whole situation is stupid. Maybe we'll find out more in the coming days. I'm sure we will, but that's the update as of right now. Now off of that, the other big news story from Friday, aside from the tag team title unification, which we will get to in a moment, is the SmackDown debut of the now former LA Knight. Now, this is also incredibly fucking dumb. I'm sorry, but this is so stupid. Why? Why would you need to change a name you literally already changed in the first place? We have gotten to a point where it was already ridiculous. I was already ranting on the name changes. Butch is beyond stupid. Cutting off Theory's first name, all right, whatever. Riddle's first name, all right, whatever. Raquel Gonzalez becomes Raquel Rodriguez, okay, whatever. Max Dupri, seriously, what the fuck is a Max Dupri? This is ridiculous. So, quick history lesson for you here. LA Knight, before he came to WWE last year, or came back to WWE, he was previously with the company 10 years ago before he got cut in 2014, was known as Eli Drake. He got that name over in Impact. He used the name in NWA. That's what people knew him as. I've actually interviewed Eli Drake as well, but I talked to him as LA Knight. I didn't have a chance to ask him about the name because he probably wouldn't give me a straight answer anyway because he works with the company currently, but I would assume the company didn't want to use the name Eli Drake because they would have to trademark it. He has said in other interviews, he said in an interview with me at one point that, this is before he came to WWE, that he likes having different monikers in different places just because he likes to have a different character like you'd be in a movie or whatever. Now, he was Eli Drake in NWA after being already Eli Drake in Impact, but you can take your Impact gimmicks with you. They've said that before. I would assume WWE didn't want him being Eli Drake because they didn't own the name, and that's like their thing. Although they've let other people use their names from other promotions, I guess he wasn't a big enough star to let that have that happen to. Like Taya Valkyrie, she also had to change her name despite having all this, name value in Taya Valkyrie. Whatever, she became Frankie Monet. So they give him the LA Knight name, not a great name, but he got it over. It was the same thing as Eli Drake, LA Knight. Yeah. The guy's a star. He got over big time as a babyface in NXT towards the end there. He was having really good matches. He was one of the best parts of the show. They take him off TV for a month. They turn him heel. They change the name, and they make him a manager. I mean, you could not turn this around any more than you possibly could. It is a complete night and day difference between NXT LA Knight and SmackDown Max Dupri. Again, they made him a manager. They took him out of the ring. They changed his name. They'll probably change his music. They turned him heel, which is fine. The guy's a great heel. But at a time more than ever where you need single stars, you need actual credible competitors on the show, why wouldn't you even give the guy a chance? The guy's an amazing talker. He will make a good manager. But him managing losers like fucking Mace, and I like Mansoor, no disrespect, but he is well above Mansoor. He's well above Mace. It's a complete waste of time. And when that shit doesn't get over, the whole maximum modeling agency or whatever the fuck it is he said, when that shit doesn't work, then they're going to blame it on him. They're going to say he's too old because he's almost 40 now. They're going to blame it on him, and then they're going to fire him. I mean, we've seen this before with Killer Kross. Oh, he didn't get over. I wonder why he didn't get over. Because you fucking had him lose from the first night in, and he was made to look like a complete loser. Took away everything special about him from NXT. That is literally what they're doing with LA Knight. I mean, this is so dumb. The name more than anything. Even the manager thing I said a few weeks ago, I don't like it. That is stupid, but I'll deal with it because the guy can make anything work. He'll make this work to the best of his ability, I'm sure. But what he can't make work sometimes is the booking. The character stuff he could try with. Some stuff is dead on arrival. This is not dead on arrival. It's not ideal, but whatever. What really bothers me is that they changed the guy's fucking name to LA Knight. He got that name over in NXT. He has credibility with that name. He became the $1 Million Champion with that name. He was on the other show. He was in NXT 2.0 with that fucking name. He spent more time in NXT 2.0 than he even did the original NXT. And they still changed his name. I mean, were they really that hard on for the whole Max modeling whatever the fuck it is? That they had to change his name to Max Dupri. It's not spelled the name as Dupri from Rene Dupri, by the way. This is Dupri. That was, Rene Dupri was Dupree. So they changed the two E's to an I, and now it's just Max Dupri. I mean, honestly, this was infuriating to me. I know the whole Sasha Naomi thing was the biggest point of the show for a lot of people. That's going to get a lot of people talking, as it should be. This really bothered me. I can't gloss over this. I mean, this guy, not that he's doomed, but they are doing him no favors. The Butch stuff is fucking dumb. That is stupid. I'll get to that in a moment. That guy is probably dead on arrival, I hate to say. He has some glimmer of hope in there, but he's probably likely done. He just write him off already, send him out to the whatever, the gallows or whatever the fuck it is, and just call it a career because he is done in this company, although he just re-signed a couple of months ago. Wouldn't be shocked if they fired him in the next 6 months. Max Dupri might join that list as well because this is just stupid. Why would you change the name when you already own it? I mean, the edict about like, oh, we can't have any first names. We want to own everything. We can't have any first names. We can't have any of your independent names. All right, really stupid rule, but at least there's some consistency there. There's no consistency with this. They're just changing it for the sake of fucking changing it. They already owned the name. Do they not have a trademark on LA Knight? And if they don't, why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they have a trademark on LA Knight if he was in NXT for a year? And if you didn't have a trademark on it, why the fuck wouldn't you realize that when you brought him into NXT a year ago? I mean, literally, this company, I love WWE, I love wrestling in general, but this is some disorganized bullshit. And if that's not what it is and it's not a trademarking thing, then it's just stupid. That makes it even worse. There's not a reason behind everything this company does aside from Vince just waking up one morning and thinking that people's names need to be changed, because if he doesn't, it's like one of those things where if there's nothing wrong, there's something wrong. And that's Vince McMahon's mentality, it seems like. Fucking stupid. Now we actually get to SmackDown, now that we're almost over 20 minutes in here. Not an overly newsworthy show, so we'll kind of save my major thoughts for the end, because this wasn't really a big SmackDown show. But the Bloodline, all of the Bloodline, Roman Reigns, the Usos, Paul Heyman, all kicked off SmackDown, addressed the Tag Team Title Unification main event. Great mic work here from Heyman and Reigns both. The Usos just kind of stood there looking into the camera. And Reigns was saying, oh, go get the job done, boys. I believe in you, or whatever he had said. And then as the segment closed, no one, aside from Paul Heyman probably, is more of a master of facial expressions than Roman Reigns at this stage of his career. He hugs the Usos, but the camera angle was such where the camera was right on Roman's face, and he looked right into the camera and smiled in sinister fashion. Honestly, I was thinking, like, if they don't win, is he going to fucking kill these guys? Like, what's going on here? So I don't know where that's leading or what the point of that was, but it was cool. I thought it was money. I thought it was very well done. But yeah, adding some extra hype to the Tag Team Title Unification main event. And to give the company credit, they did a great job of making that match matter. Now, they didn't save it for pay-per-view. It was the main event of this show, and it kind of came completely out of nowhere. I'm not really sure why you wouldn't save this for Hell in the Cell, unless they're doing a rematch of the pay-per-view inside the cell without any interference from Roman Reigns. That's also very possible. But yeah, they did a great job of making the match matter and feel meaningful throughout the show via the video packages and the promos and replaying all the highlights that RK Bro have had as Raw Tag Team Champions and the Usos have had as SmackDown Tag Team Champions. So I give them credit for that. So that was a solid segment. Shinsuke Nakamura, Sami Zayn, the first match on the show, running this back again. I think this was the fourth match they've had in WWE. Not nearly on the same level as obviously the TakeOver match from WrestleMania 32 weekend in Dallas 6 years ago. Not even as good as the Intercontinental Championship match they had on SmackDown a few months ago. Now, they had a match a few weeks ago on SmackDown that Zayn won by countout, which was silly. Nakamura did cross paths with the Bloodline as he was making his way to the ring. That is not a pay-per-view main event. Reportedly, take the reports with a grain of salt. Dave Meltzer, literally a week or two ago, two of these reports from Meltzer have been just beyond stupid. And maybe he's just getting fed wrong information or he's just speculating wrong. I'm not sure. But at one point he had said, there was never any Tag Team Title Unification match, planned for the Backlash. It was never going to happen. Okay, then why would they even bother advertising it in the first place? That makes no sense. So I call bullshit on that. And then he also said soon after they announced this match, there's not any plans actually at all to unify the tag team titles. They then announced this match and then did it anyway and had a clean finish. So again, what the fuck is it, Dave Meltzer? Unless Vince is just changing his mind, which is very likely, it just sounds like whatever information he's being fed here is just completely erroneous. But whatever. So back to what I was originally saying. It was reported that it seems like Roman's got his next three opponents lined up. Riddle at Money in the Bank, Orton at SummerSlam, McIntyre at Clash at the Castle. Those three matches make sense to me. I don't know where Cody fits in, but those three matches make sense to me. Nakamura does not fit into those plans. That may make sense as a Hell in the Cell match, not inside Hell in the Cell, but like at the actual Hell in the Cell pay-per-view. The problem is that Nakamura cannot be taken seriously. This guy is a complete fucking loser from an in-ring standpoint, from a credibility standpoint. Sure, he's over. He's a multi-time champion. People arguing, Nakamura will never not be credible. What fucking show are you watching? I swear, the people that say this shit to me don't even watch the shows. Nakamura barely ever fucking wins. If you think he is any remotely sort of a threat to Roman Reigns, you are out of your mind. I've said before, I think Nakamura would be a good opponent for Roman Reigns. I would like to see that as a match. I said that for WrestleMania Backlash. I do not want to see that at a stadium show like Money in the Bank or SummerSlam or the UK show. That would be ridiculous. At this point, Nakamura losing as much as he has, being made to look like such a fucking loser, and even more of a loser now than he was a month and a half ago when I initially said that Roman and Nakamura would be a good idea for a B-level pay-per-view or a C-level pay-per-view. With a Nakamura-Roman match. At this point, it should be a TV match. That feels like a TV main event to me. As much as Montez Ford and Roman Reigns late last year was a TV main event on SmackDown, Nakamura and Roman is officially a TV main event. With people even forgetting, which I guess it's not canon technically, so to speak, but they already did Roman and Nakamura on a Tribute to the Troop show back in December. And no one gave a fuck then. Why would anyone give a fuck now? But this was a good match to give them credit, and Nakamura winning was much needed. Zayn can lose a lot, and it doesn't really matter. I mean, he's out there wearing the Bloodline shirt. He's been hysterical lately. I mean, he's just great in general, but him losing to me doesn't really matter as much. Nakamura, if they really want to build him up as a babyface, he needs more wins, and this just ain't it, fam. But, at least he won here, so that was it. At least there's that. I'm happy Corbin for yet another week at Happy Talk. I mean, I swear we get this fucking talk show every other week. It's the point of just pure insanity. What is even the point? But Corbin was out there with a more serious demeanor, I like that, addressing Moss, and then destroyed the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal trophy. So, a couple of questions here. Didn't really care about the segment. Barely really cared about the promo, although it was well done. I don't give a fuck about the feud. But I will say this. Can we now use this as an opportunity? And Happy Corbin he's made the most of, but can we use this as an opportunity for him to go back to being Baron Corbin and go back to being serious? And people may say, oh, it's boring. He was always a bore with that character. People will find him boring regardless. Happy Corbin is not that much better. So at this point, if that's the case, just make him Baron Corbin again. Give him the old music back. Enough with the happy shit. I mean, just have him go back to being what he was before. Same thing with Madcap Moss. I don't know if they can use the Riddick Moss name or if that's his real name, or I don't know if they have a trademark on it, but use this as an opportunity with Moss off the TV being seriously written off the show, that injury angle or whatever in serious fashion. Repackage him. Give him a new name. Give him a new look. All this other sort of shit. There was speculation that might be the case, and I hope it is. Him coming back with the joke, bullshit is not going to get over. It already wasn't over anyway, so there was that 1 week where they were cheering him on when he attacked Corbin. Beyond that, he has not gotten a single positive reaction since then, since he turned on Corbin a month and a half ago. Just make him back to what he was. It's not that difficult. But this was fine. Another question I have is, with him destroying the trophy, does that mean that there is no more Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal trophy? I would love to know if that was the actual trophy or not. I would assume it was. I'm shocked they actually destroyed it. I mean, maybe they wanted to because there's so many names on that fucking thing that aren't even with the company anymore. But I'm shocked they would destroy it. I mean, maybe they'll put it back together. Usually they keep that sort of stuff. Even if they retire the trophy or the match, they keep that stuff intact so they can use it in their warehouse and that access and shit like that. So that surprised me. If that means the Battle Royal is no more, then that is fine by me. Because the match means absolutely nothing anyway. So again, why the hell not? Gunther versus Drew Gulak again. This was in retaliation from Gulak being chopped, getting his chest chopped. His chest chopped last week. That's a tongue twister. By Gunther backstage. So Gunther made quick work of him here, put him away almost immediately. Continued to attack him after the match before Ricochet made the save. So this is interesting. They're already moving into a Gunther-Ricochet feud from what I can assume. I have no issue with this. I mean, that title around Ricochet's waist means, as expected, absolutely nothing. No disrespect to Ricochet, and it's not his fault, but the way they've booked him in recent years, the guy is a complete and utter afterthought. He has been for 90% of his main roster run. Giving him the Intercontinental title, having him beat who? Fucking Shanky and Jinder Mahal has meant nothing. So honestly, just give the belt to Gunther. He wouldn't be losing, I would assume, as much as Ricochet. He's the hot new star, I guess, on the rise on SmackDown. Just give Walter the championship. Would it really even matter? At the very least, Gunther and Ricochet should be a very fun match. If they're given time, they're allowed to not go all out, but, have an actual match. I think it could be a lot of fun. Raquel Rodriguez squashing Shotzi after Shotzi and Aaliyah were bitching backstage. Oh, I should have answered the open challenge last week from Ronda Rousey. Oh, I should have done it. You all would have fucking lost anyway. Shotzi already, we know, would have lost to Ronda Rousey immediately because she already lost to Ronda Rousey 90 seconds a few weeks ago on SmackDown. So, anyway, Raquel made, again, short work of her here. They just don't give a fuck about Shotzi. Get her walking papers ready because I don't foresee her sticking around beyond the next couple of months. I'm honestly shocked they fired a lot of the women they did before they fired Shotzi. And I love Shotzi. It's not a knock on her talent. It's more of a knock on the fact they just don't use her and they don't give a shit about her. So turning her heel was the dumbest thing they could have done. Not that they probably would have pushed her as a babyface, but she's just not a good heel. She was a much better babyface. She was already over as a face. Why ruin that? Xavier Woods versus Butch. Who honestly could possibly give a shit? This feud has been going on forever. Forever. Yet another match between these two. The only silver lining from what it looked like on paper, okay, they're doing this for the millionth time, but Butch has never beaten Woods. Maybe Butch will beat Woods here. He beat Kofi Kingston last week. Maybe he'll finally win here. And he didn't. He got rolled up again by Xavier Woods, being made to look like a loser. And it wasn't even because of Kofi. Woods beat him clean. I'm not saying Woods should be losing every match, but he's already beaten Butch twice. What does he gain from beating Butch a third time? And the heels stood tall afterward anyway. So again, I ask you, what was the fucking point? And the commentators also reiterated, Butch, acts out like a petulant child every time he loses. This guy's dead in the water. I mean, with that name and this gimmick, he is fucking done. And they're also calling the three of them now, Sheamus, Ridge Holland, and Butch, the Brawling Brutes, which sounds like a very bad bowling team name, but whatever. I guess they tried. I'm all for alliteration, but that just sounds silly to me. But anyway, so after the heels stood tall, we found out from Woods afterward, we're getting a 6-man tag team match next week. Butch, Sheamus, Ridge, the Brawling Brutes, taking on Kofi, I almost said Big E, Woods, and a mystery third partner that the heels are not going to like, according to Xavier. Now, it is not Big E, unless Big E's working everyone on his injury from a couple of weeks ago, which I'm not sure why he would joke, it was a pretty serious update, and I may never wrestle again. I don't know, the way that he worded it did not make it sound like he was doing that on purpose to get people off the scent, to make it more of a moment when he comes back next week. I don't think that's happening. The first name that came to mind to me was Cesaro. Unless he worked out a deal with them to come back, which he very well could have. He's been teasing his next move lately on Twitter. We haven't heard from him at all. He hasn't done any interviews. He hasn't shown up anywhere. And he's been a free agent for 3 months. So you would think if he was going to show up anywhere, he probably would have by now. Now, I know Johnny Gargano hasn't, but he has a kid, and it's a little bit different. Cesaro has no ties to anyone. He might be married. I don't know, but I don't think he has a kid or anything. So if he really wanted to make a move and go to AEW or something, they could have had him show up at Supercard of Honor like Joe. They could have put him in as the wild card in the Owen Hart Cup this past week. They could have used him at any other point in the last couple of months, and they just haven't yet. It's been weeks. Since months since Cesaro became a free agent. So there's a very real possibility that he worked out a new deal with WWE and will be coming back. That to me was the first thought. I had seen someone say Tyler Breeze. He's another one that sounds like he might be on his way back to the company. He's not going to become a world champion anywhere. So, listen, I like Tyler Breeze a lot. He's not a game changer. He would get lost in the shuffle in 10 seconds in AEW. He might be a good fit for Impact, but I just don't get the sense that he really cares. He saved his money. He doesn't have to work in wrestling if he doesn't have to. I heard that he just came back on Up, Up, Down, Down, which is great. So, I don't know. I'm thinking that he might be on his way back. To do what? I don't know. Could SmackDown really use a Tyler Breeze right now? Would it really make much of a difference? No. I think Cesaro would make more of a difference on SmackDown than Tyler Breeze would. But, Tyler Breeze's last main roster run wasn't exactly stellar, so I don't have a lot of faith with that. But it would be cool, I guess. The most likely option is Drew McIntyre. Now, we haven't seen Drew on SmackDown in a while. We don't know what he's doing next. He failed at WrestleMania Backlash. We haven't seen him since. He's been off in the UK doing a media tour to promote Clash of the Castle. I think we were told he will be back next week. So with that being said, Drew would make the most sense. He has history with Sheamus. He has history with the New Day. They've teamed before. So I think that would make the most sense. Then we got the main event, the Tag Team Title Unification main event. RK Bro losing to the Usos, who are now the undisputed WWE Tag Team Champions. So, quality main event here, not an all-out stellar instant classic. It was a pretty standard, main event for the most part. Didn't have that big fight feel for most of it. But once they picked up the pace down the stretch, this turned into a lot of fun. Very fun main event, great main event here. In the end, it was Roman Reigns pushing Riddle at the top rope, and the Usos capitalized, becoming the new Tag Team Champions. Not super high on Roman helping the Usos, but it makes sense because Riddle attacked Roman last week with the knee in the face, so Roman wanted his revenge. He gave him his receipt, and the Usos became the champions. So of the two teams, I'm glad the Usos became the champions, just so you can have the visual, if only temporarily, of everyone in the Bloodline having double gold. So just got to put the belt on Paul Heyman and call it a day. But, yeah, no, I thought this was well done. The post-match attack on RK Bro was also great. Like I said earlier, seemingly setting up an RK Bro, rivalry with Roman Reigns when Roman comes back. I mean, he could be on the show next week probably. He's just not at Hell in the Cell. So it sounds like we're getting Roman and Riddle next at Money in the Bank, which I'm all for. I mean, I think that sounds like a great match. So I'm honestly all for that. Then Orton at SummerSlam, which again sounds great, given Orton's latest level of popularity. So I'm all for that match. They closed out strong here. The Sasha Naomi stuff was very stupid as far as how they handled it. The Max Dupri shit is just infuriating. I don't give a fuck about the New Day versus Brawling Brutes feud. Raquel, she's got to stop smiling, but if they're building to her challenging Ronda again, which they don't really have much of a choice, I'm fine with that. Their first match was good, so if they have a longer match on pay-per-view, I'm fine with that. Ricochet and Gunther, sign me up, sounds good. The Corbin and Moss shit, don't give a fuck. And Nakamura and Zayn had a quality match, although I'm not really sure what you do with them next. So a ho-hum edition of SmackDown, albeit a newsworthy one, for May 20th, 2022. Thank you guys for checking out my review here today. I appreciate it. Be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content. Make sure to hit the bell button as well to be notified every time a new video goes up. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, guys. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.